Welcome back, everybody, to week number 4. It's the very first open night for this week of the ANZ HGC, and it is a big one. If you've not been following the story so far and you've just tuned in for the very first time tonight, you've done a good job. You should definitely pat yourself on the back, because this is the game, the series of all series. This is the two biggest titans in the region. They went to the Intercontinental Clash last year, or last phase. They are the biggest names when it comes to experience in other games, in this game, and 2018 alone. And that is definitely going to be the highlight of tonight. My name is Skimmy. As always, I have my partner in crime, Vandy, as we tackle some of the best games on the stream today. And let's bring up that schedule. 4 games, 2 on camera and 2 off camera, as we wait for that graphic to pop on up. But Mindfreak up against Crimson is where things happen to start off with. Both of these teams undefeated. Crimson coming into this one with a 1-week advantage, as Mindfreak had the jet lag of the mid-season brawl to work with. Vandy, obviously, that is a highlight in its own. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but match number 2, what do you make of that one?
Match number 2, Aztec versus Xylophone Dudes, also should be quite a close one. Xylophone Dudes have shown us quite a strong performance. We do know that out of Xylophone Dudes, it was actually called Quick Match Warriors, and then Mad Hacks, a player from there, actually went to join Mindfreak. So to come back as well and to still play as well, even though they've lost a core member, just shows, I guess, the resilience of some of these teams. And Aztec becoming one of those teams that came about because of the roster apocalypse to absorb a couple of members, well, one member, if you will. And they're really just showing like a lot of promise.
They are, and I think there's going to be a lot of promise from the members themselves to actually see if they can barge their way into that top 3 of the 4 spot. They've been looking strong so far, but the consistency is going to be the biggest factor for them. With the schedule in mind, let's actually bring up those caster predictions and see exactly how myself, yourself, and everybody else involved in the ANZ HGC feel that these teams will slot themselves in. All of us, except Kitfox, think that Crimson this time around are actually looking a lot stronger and will come out with that first seed spot. But I think it starts to get a little bit more interesting when we head around the middle of the table. Impenetrable Hill, the brand new team from the Open Division, still a lot to prove, hence why they are sat down in 8th spot. But around 100%. The mark from 4 to 7, it's anybody's game.
Yeah, and you can already see that in the cast predictions as well. So in terms of the huge discrepancy, I guess that really just comes because we're still just seeing how the teams are settling into this new sort of division and with these new teams. So in terms of when we think one team is going to come up ahead, we have seen a couple of upsets and vice versa. But these two teams here, we know that this is the match that everyone's been waiting for ever since that Intercontinental Clash. They've always been at each other's, I guess, step, just matching each other's pace with the Mindfreak and the Crimson right there. But the change is, and you and I were talking about this, is that Crimson, they've managed to absorb Hack-In, but keep the core roster pretty much the same. Mindfreak, with the addition of Mad Hacks, have had to do a little bit of role swaps.
Well, that's the biggest point I want to discuss as well, because these two teams were neck and neck. It was a best of 7 in Brazil. It went 4-3 in favor of Mindfreak, but it was so damn close. That could have definitely gone the other way. And I mean, let's put that side by side. Where do the odds favor them now? Mindfreak, they've picked up a new player. They've swapped those roles around with Fat94 now playing that tank. So that is a extra change as opposed to Crimson, where they brought in Hacky. He plays that role already. Everybody else is untouched. So I feel like if we go into this one, depending on whether these teams want to actually show strategies, because it could be counterintuitive towards that Sydney land later on, they may just hide stuff tonight. But if they do want to show stuff, I feel like Crimson should have the edge, about 60-40.
I feel like you don't really have the leisure to hide stuff at this point, Skimmy. It has to be do or die for these guys. And I say that because you really do want to go in just showing you're putting your best foot forward. I mean, if you're trying to hide those strategies, that'd be great. That's why we do have the best of 3 series, but you're going to put that pressure on yourself saying, oh man, if we just played the way we usually do instead of trying to hide a strat, then we could have come up on top. And really, I think for both teams as well, they're going to be feeling the pressure because they're currently both undefeated so far.
What's really interesting actually coming into this one, Vandy, is the preference for first pick. Now, I was looking at some of these stats going into this one. Mindfreak have played 8 games, of which 7 they've first picked. They come into this one as the first pick once again. Whereas Crimson, out of the 12 games they have played, 8 times they've first picked. So both of these guys love to get those power picks, love to start the draft off strong and sort of mold it from that point outwards. But I was looking back at some of those games from the end of phase 1, and when it comes to this team, and this team pretty much only, they tend to really be quite flexible in terms of you can have a map, we can have first pick. We both sort of know our styles and kind of like the innovators in the region, which tends to sort of trickle down.
I'm really glad you brought that up because that was something I wanted to discuss as well. The whole, I guess, priority around that first pick. We know that Mindfreak feel quite confident against most maps. Same too goes for Crimson. Yes, I mean, when you do look back, they've got a couple of specialities. I mean, they're very, very strong on, say, Tomb of the Spider Queen and Infernal Shrines. But in terms of that, they also do like to opt for that first pick. And really that just comes down to, as you said, locking in those power picks. What really defines their team composition, or what really defines how they can really play to the objective or play to the map. So I'm really interested that Muradin happened to be that power pick. And we've really seen him come dwarven jumping in to the meta once again. And I think a lot of that is just due to his resilience, but also that dive. We've seen so many high mobility heroes. So his ability to be mobile, it just puts him above a couple of other tanks. And also locking out that blaze, that's another high mobility tank, but then that's not available for Crimson to pick up now.
Let me give you some backstory as to what this all sort of means. I mean, with Fan94 switching to the Muradin or switching to the tank, he has physically switched to that Muradin. He's played it 4 times with a 100% win rate. The guy loves it. He loves diving. He loves getting amongst it and creating chaos as opposed to sort of traditional standard in the Garrosh. We flip over to what that Blaze ban really means. Obviously, point control is fantastic with the bunker on a central objective, but Jesmez, that has been his go-to hero, also undefeated over 4 games. So to swap things around, they have opened up with that Thrall and Johanna, gives them fantastic point control. You'd imagine that an Earthquake would come across there, and they can then flex that into an Azure with, say, Phoenix later on. The Urel's quite interesting, actually, because looking at the stats for her, since she's been buffed, where she's a lot stronger now, she's been played 7 times, but only with a 42% win rate. So despite how dominant she may seem in your Hero League games and how dominant she seems to be across the pond in EU and in NA, she's definitely not found her limelight, and that could come down to compositional areas or just the teams themselves going up against stacked matchups. But it's interesting to see, and definitely a big reason why she has to be taken out. She's just so damn strong.
She is super strong, Skimmy, especially after her reworks, and we are seeing now players really start to adjust that playstyle that she brings. I feel like a lot of the reason why she struggles, though, is that she can still be quite telegraphed. We do know that crowd control is one of her biggest weaknesses, and these are teams where you know how to take advantage of a hero's weakness. If you're playing someone in mobile, I'm going to play that dive. I'm going to make sure I'm always in your face, and you just try and escape me. If you're going to play someone that is good at flanking, say the Tracer right here, you just always watch your backline, because the moment you let up, that's where Tracer's going to see an opportunity. So these teams are always playing at the highest level, and they know how to counter these sorts of heroes. So it's not like just loading up your hero and be like, okay, I'm going to face roll people with Urel today. No, it doesn't quite work like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's quite exciting actually to see that Johanna picked up this early on. KVA has only played 3 tanks, Muradin, Johanna, and Garrosh, really playing around that meta, which is, initiation or just straight raw beefiness. And it's a heads-up play because it's going to allow them to have that blind, that control to try and target down that Tracer. Now, that will be vanilla on the Tracer. So this is a chance for us once again to see how comfortable he is with that hero. There goes the Phoenix, as we imagine, with those first 2 picks for Crimson. And the Decade Cane, a direct counter with Stay a While and all the other controlling elements to try and shut down that Tracer. But, Tracer, Genji, Maiev, these were all power picks last season for Fat94. The question really is, how strong is vanilla on these heroes?
I think a lot of people as well have been praising Vanilla to go from that support role to the assassin role, and almost quite seamlessly. We've seen his team really just shine, and if there are any sort of errors, it doesn't really come down to, say, Vanilla playing as bad. It's also more just coming down to the whole team's rotations or shot calling. That's where I've really seen Mindfreak just struggle a little bit more in this phase. Crimson, I feel like they're in a very, very strong stead, but where they can also come into trouble is that they're often overstaying or just being a little bit too overconfident in moments where they should have backed out. So always just being more aggressive. And it just comes down to those slight errors. But when you're coming up against these teams, we already saw in the Intercontinental Clash, Skimmy, it would just be one mistake that, say, Mindfreak would then suddenly capitalize, or Crimson would just capitalize on. So you just can't afford to make these sorts of mistakes. The Stitches and Li Ming as well, I really do like. It's going to offer them heaps of zoning potential.
The Stitches is a first tier. You'd imagine that is for Ryu. He has not played that at all. He's been playing a lot of Blaze, Urel, and Thrall, all taken away. So an adaptation there, once upon ago, that would have been the Penta, playing that for the hook initiation into the Malfurion route, and you got that instant blow up. And they do have that raw damage to follow up those short cooldown windows, because that's really what I'm seeing so far from Mindfreak, is that we're not looking for strong point control. It's looking to try and take somebody off that objective and blow them up and enforce a numerical advantage. You can have, Twilight Dreams, you can have Storm Bolts, Roots. Well, you need some form of burst. Tracer and Li Ming obviously excel at that, and if they can get the ball rolling, well, they're the best team in this league to achieve that. But this final 5th pick, the flex pick at that, I'd imagine this one is going to be for Hacky, unless he's going to be playing the Phoenix, but it's been Azure so far. And it's been quite nice actually having Hacky on this roster. He's brought a lot more in terms of hero pool to allow Crimson to sort of draft around. And he's actually played the most heroes on his team so far with 9 to his name. And he's going to flex out with the Junkrat.
So he's going to add another one right there, Skimmy, by locking in that Junkrat. Very interesting. I know Hacky's go-to right here, given the choice, and if she wasn't banned out, would have been that Chromie. So Mindfreak as well, doing their research, hence why the Chromie ban. Definitely targeted to really minimize the impact Hacky can have. And we also know Chromie can excel quite nicely on Volskaya Foundry. She's got plenty of fog to play in, and it's quite difficult to reach her, especially if you got, say, the Johanna and Thrall getting amongst it. Both teams have come up with a very, very strong draft, thinking about the objective in mind, but also the team fights, because there's going to be a lot of them, especially once those control points open up and the fights start to break up around them.
And it's going to be actually quite exciting also for the side of statistics, because all 10 of these players are the highest KDA players in ANZ. And that's basically based on sort of the dominant run they've had so far, where they have not really been pushed or contested. So those inflated stats where you see the Shadow, the support player, on a 55 KDA after 12 games, that may just be diminished a little bit for everybody else as well. So we're going to start to see a more accurate representation. I mean, if we look at last season, there was nowhere near a chance of him finishing on that. His KDA finished at 9.5. So that gives you a bit of perspective as to how strong they are against these other teams, and how much we should really look forward to seeing that skill translate up against a far more evenly matched opponent.
It also just plays into how they like to play. It's just all about the aggression right there and capitalizing. Once they get that level advantage, they're not going to play passive. They're going to utilize that advantage and really just turn it into a snowball right there. But it's also interesting. I mean, if we talk about which team has already played Volskaya this season and come out ahead, that would be Crimson. We've yet to see Mindfreak go onto Volskaya Foundry in this phase, but I mean, it's one game. You can't read too much out of it, can you? And even if you take last phases numbers into this, it's still not really going to indicate too much on which team should have the advantage.
Well, it's a best of 3 here on Volskaya Foundry, with Crimson Gaming going for their map pick. But on the left-hand side, the reigning champions of ANZ, it's Mindfreak with Madhax playing Malfurion, Vanilla on Tracer, John playing Li Ming, Fat94 on Muradin, and Ryu on Stitches.
And painted red, we have Crimson with Shadow on Decade, Azure playing Phoenix, Jesmez playing Thrall, Hacky on Junkrat, and KVA on Johanna.
So this is a trade, or a early game start in the mid lane, which will favor Mindfreak if they can go fishing, find some hooks, and isolate like they've done in the past. This was actually so prominent that in the final series in Brazil, Crimson actually banned away the Stitches because they were that scared of it.
But look at this already. Ryu is finding himself in a lot of trouble just by one grenade there by Hacky to really displace him. So already just needing to watch out. And this is the advantages that I'm thinking was talking about before, Skimmy. You know, Stitches, very, very immobile. Hacky, he used his displacement, and that was just all the team needed to just get that quick kill. It's early days, however, you can really see there's really no experience lost.
And that is the beauty of being able to last pick in that situation, where you can just flex your draft to cater to what needs to be, I suppose, adjusted to. And in this case, it was that Stitches composition. So the Junkrat, a bit of a heads-up play. And it will give them, once again, more control when it comes to those objectives, which is going to be the big focal point for these teams. A minute into this one, both teams, as is tradition on this map, are going to veer away to take those turret camps. And not only is the point control imperative, but the ability to actually put items down, such as those turrets and those biotic emitters, it really, it spells disaster. It's kind of like having Alex Strauss on Infernal Shrines, that big Dragon Queen cooldown. You just can't do anything into it.
That's right. Otherwise, you're just playing into a disadvantage right there, and that's really not what you want to have. So both teams just setting themselves up really nicely, as you said, for the first protective phase. And, I mean, also you can see with the teams, it's all about the rotations right here. So they have the wave clear Crimson, and that's what they're really starting to utilize.
I mean, the major adaptation really I can see from level 1 is the Arsenal synergy here for Phoenix. So looking to utilize that mini cannon and then splash out with the repeater cannon later on. Usually finds a fair bit of value when team members are clumped on up. Extra splash damage, why not? As we do go into level 4.
It's all about that cleave, Skimmy. KVA soaking up a little bit of damage. He's going to be in no trouble right there, Azure. And it just comes down as well, Skimmy. Both teams are going to be playing a little bit more passively in the early game because they just want that experience. The name of the game is experience. Only if they do see an easy kill or an easy opportunity. Vanilla, he does use the Pulse Bomb, Azure having to warp out. But if they do see that opportunity, that's when they're willing to fight. And most of the time, it's just going to be even trades.
There's nothing wrong with using that pulse bomb as such, just getting some poke on down. It charges up incredibly quickly, already up to 51% again. So Azure does bear the brunt of a fair bit of damage, but it's no problem for the old man on Deckard Kane there to top things up with a few pots here and there. Shout out to you, Mark.
Shadow an old man because it sounded like it.
I had to re-clarify my point there with the final. But control point A will be unlocked in 3 seconds. And right now, Mindfreak have the advantage in terms of how they're postured for this. We still got that 3-lane split for Crimson, soaking up the lanes in top and bot. And they will hit level 6 first as a result. The question, I suppose, is, are they looking to achieve some power spikes, some power level before they actually contest this one? KVA now is coming across, but as is the way that Volskaya functions, you can stand on this, but you've actually got to bully your opponent off, or just it still trickles up.
That's right. So the way it works is whoever caps it, as long as there's still one body on it, they can manage to hold the point. But you can force them into an overtime if you're going to fight over it. Azure in a lot of trouble. The pulse bomb gets him dangerously low, and he's taken out.
Just like that, Phoenix falls to the floor, and this is a strong showing for Mindfreak so far, 65% and climbing. As they do even up that XP disadvantage that they were met with just mere seconds before. It allows them to now themselves actually veer away, given they have the numbers advantage to carry on that soak and get well on their way to level 7. So the very first Trickle of Protector will find a little bit of value. Generally speaking, you're looking to try and play it like Dragonshire, where you unlock 2 towers and cycle between 2 lanes. You're not going to find much more than that.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Already this front wall has been weakened just from the push and coming out from Mindfreak. So they take that front wall and now just heading up to that top wall. So it's just really about getting as much experience as possible, because as you said, Skimmy, the first Tree Glove Protector, it's quite weak. It doesn't have the largest health pool. Just trying to just get some experience and soak.
So level 7 being unlocked. Quite interesting actually seeing that Johanna build. It seemed to be the new adaptation, veering away from the Condemn and more into the burst damage. So Sin's exposed at level 4 there. You pop that shield glare. They get marks for extra damage, which would be so strong, especially if Leeming and Tracer go a little bit too dive heavy. Very squishy health pools. Easy for somebody like the Thrall or the Junkrat then to pop. But then with the Blessed Momentum, really looking to try and shut down that Tracer. When she doesn't have that ability to use those auto attacks, she's severely shut down. The Pulse Bomb is a really big option, and if it's not there, she's a glorified minion.
That's it. KVA is using the body blocks. They've got Fat 94 just dishing out some damage now onto him, forcing him to retreat. And already, Skimmy, you can see there's just a little bit of that slight experience, just the slimmest of margins now, coming out from Mindfreak due to that first Tree Glove Protector.
Crimson are going to opt to go for their siege camp, top right. Get some macro pressure, which will lead into some quite nice pressure later on, as point B will be spawning up there. So much like you see on Sky Temple, if you can push that lane out, maybe get a well, get a tower, does definitely aid that next protector you're able to achieve if you do win it. But how are we looking for talents and quests? Well, Ben 94, he's coming up to 7 stacks with that Stormbolt, which is a bit of a testament, I suppose, really, to how, I don't want to say passive, but it hasn't been skirmish heavy to start this game off with, Vandy.
No, I mean, that's actually quite low for Meridians, and as you said, it's because he doesn't want to get caught out, and he hasn't really had much opportunities rotating with the team, so it's very difficult to try and catch Crimson to keep getting those Stormbots off. He's anchoring now with his team. They've started the support camp. He's just going to be pretty much trying to nuisance, be a zoner right here onto KVA, while his team just takes the support camp.
They absolutely can. They have level 10 unlocked for free. They see that Crimson have multiple members in that bottom lane, and this gives them a strong option for that next point. So Vital Commander and a turret, it definitely plays into, well, 2 turrets actually, so they have a lot of control. And with their fishing comp as well, it patches their weakness. They now have strong team fight as opposed to having to sort of look for that pick and then engage.
10 now, finally acquired by Crimson as well. And because 3 members were down bot, you can see Mindfreak, they took that opportunity to take down that top 4. So they've already set themselves up very nicely. If they take this objective right here, they can just march straight onto the keep. There's going to be no fort to defend this lane.
There is the Earthquake, the Riptide, as well as the Purification Salvo, as we imagined. So 2 massive ultimates empowered by the slowing sand style of the Earthquake on Thrall. So if it does come to a point control, and you see Mindfreak aggress a little bit too much, then they will definitely be able to get turned around upon and shut down just like that, because it's only 2 kills. And we're 7.5 minutes into this game, so a very slow start, as mentioned before. And before still picking up a few more stacks here and there. But I can't imagine any of these teams wanting to showcase too much until this next point unlocks, and that it will in 25 seconds.
This is where things will start to really heat up, Skimmy. Already I was noticing that Mad Hacks, he's opted for Tranquility, which makes a lot more sense to me than, say, going the Twilight Dream.
Yep.
There's really little collapse that you can see. They don't really have the flankers. It's more that you want to keep your members alive from the burst that Crimson will be throwing your way. So just good talent choice. Good use of a heroic right there.
It's a strong adaptation, and it makes sense for the map and the situation and everything else that is being considered. But Mindfreak are actually going to delay themselves coming up to this. They have 2 turrets already. They are spawned and sat right next to this turret camp again. So they're looking to bring 3 turrets to control point B. And as a result of that one, Crimson say, look, we've got 2 turrets ourselves. Yes, we don't have that support healing camp, but hey, we're going to punish you.
Yep, let's exactly right. Let's punish you. Let's push and get some more experience. And you can already see they start to back away, expecting the rotation now from Mindfreak. Fat 94 first on the point here.
They had to as well because they are down a whole level. So Mindfreak quite comfortable to do that one. They give up 50%. But they find themselves, they hook the root, does land. As the walk gets interrupted, stay well, listen is massive. The pulse bomb connects, but he manages to stay alive. Earthquake is there. And the salvo spitting lasers from afar, finding a lot of value as KD gets dropped down to 400 health, forced to back away. The same can be said for Fat 94. But without that third wind at level 1, he's relying on Mad Hacks as well as his default passive to try and top things up. He's doing a good job so far. It's enough to allow them to regain control of that point. They're going to hit level 13 as well. And it may just be the ticket for Crimson to bail on out.
You can really see the defining factor of that team fight was really that support camp coming into play there. Just that extra regeneration, that extra health and mana right there just made all the difference in terms of making sure that Fat 94 did not fall in that fight. But it was just rough days for Azure. I'm surprised he managed to get out with his life there. The walk got interrupted. There's still enough healing on standby, enough healing to go on. But second support camp now being picked up by Mindfreak.
This is when the strength of being ahead on the map like Sky starts to shine on through. Mindfreak are able just to walk into that support camp once again and pick it up for free on cooldown. They can now turn their attention back to control point B. They're up to 95%. And yes, it has been contested, but once again, they have to sustain. Level 13 is literally just about to hit here, but the ultimates are only now just starting to come online. Salvo is there, Riptire is there, but no Earthquake for 20, Vandy.
13 acquired as well by Crimson, and they're putting everything into
Massive.
Ryu, who drops.
Absolutely massive right there. Riptire comes across a fantastic ice block by Mad Hacks, as Malfurion does end up falling down. And Mindfreak have just taken 2 casualties here. Yes, they had the advantage when it came to that support camp, but the superiority in this clean execution from Crimson allows them to, in clutch timing, at 99%, bounce back as we see a replay here. It all started off with Ryu walking into the front line, much like that early engage. He gets called out by a second concussion mine, and Stay a While Listen zoning out the remaining members from Mindfreak to prevent any kind of counter engage. A strong showing so far.
Really well done by Hacky there, but Mad Hacks to use that ice block to keep himself alive. Also just made sure that they got out with minimal casualties right there. Otherwise that Riptide would have done devastating damage. And as you said, it just came down to that clean execution. That really should have been Mindfreak's fight to take. But the burst that they have as well, they're really utilizing it. And that's just emphasizing they know how to play their composition. And Crimson are just waiting for that opportunity, which now they're taking. So just really exposing Mindfreak's base now, utilizing that Tree Glove Protector.
So they're pushing this one in. Don't expect to see them go for this keep here, as this Protector is taking a fair chunk of damage, down to 40%. No clear advantage when it comes to XP as well. Ryu did actually go down to the bottom lane. He's pondering the thought of coming back up again. But he was trying to get some extra soak on, but based on how patient Mindfreak have been, and I say it maybe a little bit too soon as they do actually finally come in with the kill. Stay a While Listen is massive, and Riptide actually gets taken out. It actually gets taken out before it can even do anything. That would have been catastrophic. Protector is now going to fall on down. They have to back away. That keep has taken some damage. It's not enough for them to stick around and try and commit to it. And keep an eye on Ryu. He's looking for the hook.
This is bad.
There's the hook. There's the root. And that should be the kill. Kill confirmed, number 2.
It just takes that one hook, Skimmy. We say it every time with Stitches. It doesn't matter. You can just wait, bide your time, and it just happened to be Jesmez, arguably one of the worst targets that could have gone in there. Yes, the Earthquake came out. There was still heaps of damage to return with, and Hacky, that Riptire, as you said, if that had hit, at least they could have done a trade. But that just shows the resourcefulness coming out from Mindfreak and their focus of their own. They were saying, get rid of that Riptire, we can't let it hit. And that just really just put a spanner in the works. Now, Mindfreak are first to hit 16 when really it should have been Crimson. There's so much back and forth this game.
That it should have been, as Muradin here is going to spec into Dwarf Launch, so extra engage range. allowing him to be a nuisance and definitely follow up to any Stitches counterplay, kind of act like the warrior version of stay a while and listen, as he can jump in there and thunderclap and keep everybody all controlled, kind of like herding the sheep. But he has completed his quest, so he's going to have some cooldown reduction pretty much for his entire kit right now if he can get some value off with those auto attacks.
Now, Mindfreak, it's always been around the support camp. 16 being acquired as well by Crimson, so they've caught up. And they see Mindfreak starting their support camp.
This time they can actually contest it the first time they can this game. It's the third time the support camp has gone, or has been started by Mindfreak. The KDA is going to walk on in. Fat94 is playing a flanking role to try and set things up. We saw what that meant when it was on Battlefield of Eternity, how they were just able to explode and collapse. Skull of Ceiling staying while Listen hits onto 3 members, which is huge. Hacky is zoned out in that backline. Who can they find a kill onto? Ancient Blessings is finding value in its own right with those auto attacks collapsing. There's going to be the Riptide to knock back the advancements off the boys from blue. But everything gets traded. Every single ultimate had to be consumed. And Mindfreak still come ahead with Ryu picking up that healing camp.
Oh, I'm on the edge of my seats of these team fights, Skimmy. They're being decided by a thread. And both teams just having, I guess, really that discipline to pull out to know when you shouldn't be chasing, when you should fall back a little bit. Mad Hacks, that Tranquility came out huge as well. You can see how quickly members were topped up after a few seconds of just staying in there. And then Crimson just being forced to back away. It's going to come down to these next few fights, Skimmy.
And it will, Vandy. 14 minutes into this one, and those respawn timers only start to get longer. But it has not been a game full of blood just yet. It's been really focused on the macro and really focused on seized opportunities, punishing the shot call from your opponent. But point C, this is where we will definitely see some fun. You had the joy last week of seeing a 5-man mosh pit. So around a map like this, or around a point like this, with all those Trevelators, you know, things do start to get a little bit wild, so expect something to happen here as the pulse bomb does land onto KVA, forcing that Iron Skin out, not only for the shield mitigation, but also to prevent Ryu landing that hook.
So he's just eaten a couple of cooldowns right there, which is pretty good. They're just trying to take the camp as well, get another turret for them, but Vanilla senses something might be up, not sensing or spotting Azure. The invade's happening now. Shadow now, he misses the hook.
Connects. He recalls, yes, a dash away straight on that. Oh, Azure, has he found it? Salvo's going to go across. Down to 150, but he's zoned.
That's right, Skimmy, he's zoned. And now, Crimson, they can make their way up onto the point. They know Vanilla has to heal up, so they've got a couple of seconds to at least hold the point. Get some percentage ticking for themselves. Camp as well being acquired now, so Mindfreak just making sure that they have a turret too. They're not going to be down in terms of any advantage. Ryu, he still has that support camp ready to go, that healing ward.
But they do, so once again they have that advantage. Shadow's dropping healing pots like a sushi train. And that's going to be a turret down from Crimson to start off with. The Earthquake to the left, the fight to the right. Vanity4 is actually trying to make people stay a while and listen. But Frog does fall down in the engagement as Riptide collapses. This time does land on towards Vanilla, dropping him quite low. Shadow's taking a fair bit of damage, and he's looking to try and make something happen as the fight still continues from multiple different angles. The hook landing onto Phoenix. Shadow's completely isolated on this Travelator on 3. The fadeaway staying wild. Listen, can he run? His team have deserted him. And that's going to spell disaster as 2 members of Crimson fall on down. And surely with this in mind, Mindfreak can pick up this Protector. They can hit 20 and they can potentially close out the game.
I think the big talking point there, Skimmy, was a lot of their composition really relies for Crimson in terms of that Earthquake and Salvo combination right there. So we saw the Salvo going off onto Vanilla earlier on. That was one cooldown burn. This time, Jesmes, he used the Earthquake. There was no Salvo available to then follow up with that damage. And thus, he also just got popped. He was also a sitting dark. And Fat94 doing the zoning in the backline, you could already see Mindfreak. They know who to isolate. They know who to target. But also, if they were counting the cooldowns, which I'm sure they would have been, they knew that the Salvo was down. And a big part of that team fight came down to utilizing both effectively.
Yeah, utilising the fact that those ultimates were down, but also utilising the item advantage once again, which has been a big theme of this map, as they've picked up every single support camp. Clearing out this wave, they will hit level 20, and this Protector will definitely pack a punch, shredding through these towers, as one already starts to fall on down. The second, a close competition. But that Keeper's now exposed. And this Protector alone surely can take it down for free. The question is, like always, Vandy, you have 20 of your opponent. You can find some kills. You can end.
That's it. And that's exactly what Crimson know, so they'll be playing carefully. But Ryu, he gets absolutely destroyed.
Staying while listen is good. It's going to lock in place Fat 94. Zhu takes a lot of damage. He gets the kill and he whoops away. A fantastic little play by him. Getting in and getting out. Utilizing the fact that Malfurion is in that protector. There is no sustain. There is no chance to survive or follow up one of those hooks with a root. And that is a saving grace there for Crimson. Yes, they do lose their keep, but now they can play for 20s themselves.
Yeah, pretty much, Skimmy. Yeah, lost the keep, but still in the game, and I'll take that trade any day. They've also equalized a lot of the experience that they were missing because of the kills that they managed to pick up from Mindfreak, and already they look to find some value of their own. They know they've got 30 seconds, while we've got 2 members of Mindfreak still waiting to respawn.
Conveniently, that top lane was already pushed on out, so it allows them to finish what they started earlier, which was that very first keep, the pulse bomb onto Shadow, and the knockback with the 20 upgrades. As Vanilla is taking no chances here, but Deckard Cain, he's a resilient old man. He's seen everything in his lifetime, and he drops down to 50%.
20 acquired.
They may be pushing in as a result here, looking for that pick. But the respawn times are good. Both Stitches and Leeming are back in the game now. Fan94 is going to scout out some vision here with an anchor. The question, I suppose, really for Dandy is, do Crimson, they do start the support camp, but do they get it? Because Mindfreak aren't far away.
And Fat 94 has got the comms there as well. He has been rooted, but as you said, they know that's coming. He'd be trying to get amongst it.
Scroller Sing is fantastic. Wave Force is even better. And it's on the flank right there with the Salvo onto 3 members with the Earthquake, with the Riptide, with everything thrown at it. Stitches is just going to be deleted. As Malfurion does get the Ice Block off, but it's the second time it's happened for Mad Hacks. Yes, the Ice Block is beautiful, but he does delay the inevitable, and the respawn time is once again 50 seconds, Vandy. Oh, it's getting scary. They can definitely go for the push.
Replay on your screen now. You can already see Jesmes. Yes, he's hooked, but you can already see KV8 eats the hook, and the stay a while and listen, followed by that Salvo Riptide combination. You can see Crimson. They're really, really utilizing their heroics in quite nice order, and this is going to be game number 1 over to Crimson, surely.
CC chained right there. Mirrodin cannot do anything about that one as John desperately tries to utilize the cycling of his cooldowns left, right, and center. Tracer getting popped in the meantime. But this is going to be Crimson on towards the core, going for game number 1. Their map, their draft, their style, and their game for the taking in this best-of-3 series. GG.
Oh, Skimmy. What a game that was. It was so tug of war throughout so many parts. Neither team is really giving an inch, but that last team fight around the support camp, by Jesmes being the one hooked as well, immediately the Earthquake came out. But the fact that he got knocked away as well saved him. And then KVA eating the hook that came out as well just meant that all the squishy members in the backline could just stay safe. And then as soon as the Earthquake had dropped, they were all really Mindfreak, just sitting, waiting to just eat heroics, if you will. And that just worked out so well. Crimson, you really started to see their draft. It was all about the team fight, all about the wombo, and they were very, very patient, waiting for the right opportunity to use those.
Yeah, definitely. They could hold points down and definitely exert some pressure. And it felt to me as if by the end of that game, Mindfreak started to play a lot more reactive, which is something that we don't tend to see from them.
Absolutely.
Based on how, evenly matched these two teams are, it's really exciting to sort of see them actually be put on the bat foot for once, which is, you don't commonly see, right? So I feel like this is a case of back to the drawing board. We tried the Stitches. It didn't really work out as much as we'd like to. Yes, we did get some very strong hooks, but they weren't impactful enough to try and deter away from their major plan, which was just to be a 5-man unit. And if the Earthquake landed, the Riptide and Salvo, as we mentioned, all coming together as one, just secured the deal.
It really was, Skimmy. It was just also really enjoyable to see, Vanilla when he was flanking and constantly looking for those picks. There was one point where he was very, very close to finishing Shadow off, but those stay a while and listens as well. I feel like that was also a turning point for Crimson. Good. It was just so on point. And already, as you said, Mindfreak, they're going back to the drawing board, but we've got a series on our hands.
We definitely do have a series on our hand, and game number 2 will be coming up right after this break, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you in 3 minutes.